Okay, I think I'm going to start. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gabriela Ciocârlie. I'm with SRI International, and I'm the General Chair for IEEE SMP 2020. Well, welcome to a virtual world. It's a little bit different than how we planned and how we had to organize everything. 2020 is a strange year so far, and I hope you and your families are all healthy and fine. And our thoughts are really with the ones that lost the loved ones in these crazy times. We are working with a different setting. We have never tried this before. So far, other conferences that went with the online format seem to have done well, and there was a Science Magazine article about that. So let's do the best that we can with the format that we have, and please be kind. There might be issues. I hope we will never have to do this again, but we will, if we have to do it, I'm sure we will do it better. So far has been an exciting year. We had more papers than last year. We had 104 accepted papers versus 84 in 2019. We have so many attendees, from 644 last year. Now we are 2,000 people attending the conference. We also had received graciously donations from our sponsors, and we thank them again for that. So this couldn't have been done without all the organizing committee. Everybody worked so hard. Everybody put in much more effort. We pretty much had to organize 2 conferences. We started with one plan and then we had to switch to a new plan. So Hovav and Alina have been helping us with the whole work that PC chairs have to do throughout the year. But then in the last few weeks, they had to help us with things that they didn't assume that they would have to do. So thank you both so much. Alvaro, you've been my support there, and we've been working together so nicely. Rakesh and Mark, thank you so much for all the support to change the budgets and everything in the last minute when we had to switch to the online version. Breland, you've done fantastic work. It was your first time in the committee, and you were a rock there. Bogdan and Ioannis helped us with all the publications and all the proceedings. And then I would like to thank the executive events, Melanie and Casey, and all the team behind the scenes that you guys cannot see now, but they are there supporting us every minute. Scott has been doing tremendous job to keep us alive on the media and inform you with all the things that are changing and how we are structuring and thanking the donors. Yao has been working with the students to get the student travel with the student travel committee. We again changed everything there, and we are now offering support for registration for the students. Daniel has been the workshops chair, working closely with all the workshops so that we are again redoing everything that we had to do. Michelle and Arkady have been doing tremendous work with the posters and short talks. EJ, as last year, she's been keeping an eye on all the awards and making sure you guys are going to be thanked after the conference and during the conference. Tom has organized again the PC chair with the students, and that was a success. And Luis has been bothered every day pretty much in the last 2 months to change things on the website and supporting us with so many changes. Tiffany has been doing a tremendous work to collect all the previews, and I'm going to have a surprise for you a little bit later. And Mark, we had you as a chair last year, and you supported us and you helped us so much this year as well. Thank you all so much. We couldn't have done this without all of you. And of course, the technical committee has been there to support us. Ulfar, Brian, Young, and EJ have been working closely with us and have been guiding us on how to move forward with the original plans, with the new plans, and so forth. I would like to thank our donors. We had, again, the supporters that we had in the past years. We have new supporters. So I would like to thank all our platinum donors, ERL, Microsoft, NSF, and Intel, our gold donors, Avast, Cisco, Facebook, Google, and a new donor, Idaho National Lab. Thank you all. The silver donors, CMU, ByteDance, Norton Life, and IBM, and Baidu and ONR, thank you, and Palo Alto, and VMware. And the bronze donors, a new donor, AI Data Innovation, Siege, has been there with us in the past, and the same with Qualcomm. Lincoln Labs have been there with us in the past. We had a new type of support. Visa Research introduced a scholarship for female students. This was the pilot this year. You will hear more next year about this program. Thank you, Visa Research, for that. I would like to emphasize a few of the events that we are going to have with our conference. The paper awards are happening now in a few minutes. Test of Time awards are happening in a few minutes as well. We have two special BOF sessions, Bird of a Feather. One is on Monday. It's going to be Intel is organizing that. Birds of a Feather. We have a virtual poster reception where we are going to all talk to the presenters of the posters. We have the speed mentoring. We managed to do the speed mentoring even if we are not in person. We created a lot of Zoom meetings. Everybody we have a schedule and everything, and this is happening also. And I thank all the mentors and all the students who volunteer to be in the program. Short talks Tuesday, another BOF session around a program at NSF, work that our colleagues are doing based on an NSF program. And then we are going to have the TC business meeting as usually on Wednesday this time. So these are the different events. And then on Thursday, we're going to have the workshops. Everything will be promoted like you saw it for today on On24. You will have all the links there, how to access all the different workshops. And please join them all on Thursday. In terms of the paper sessions structure, so be aware that, again, we tried all sorts of settings, and we kind of settled on one format. We have every session every paper session will be structured into these three steps. First, we are going to have the paper previews. These are all going to happen on the On24 platform. Then we have the three tracks, and all those three tracks will have the pre-recorded videos. Again, on the On24 platforms. After the pre-recorded sessions with all the pre-recorded talks are happening, we're going to have a very interactive Zoom session for all the different tracks. So in this case, microarchitecture, security, blockchain one, anonymity. So each of them has its own room on Zoom. And please join those sessions and be as interactive as possible. The idea is to ask questions. The idea is to make it as lively as possible. So those are regular Zoom meetings with speaker mode. Initially, only the speakers and the session chairs are going to be unmuted, but you have two options to interact with the speakers. You can raise your hand on Zoom and ask your question live. You can do that, or you can use the chat window. So you have two options, but please be as interactive as possible. And if you do that, you are going to see a surprise at the end of the conference. Reminders and announcements. You should all have the proceedings available. You received a user name and a password. You will be able to also download all the proceedings for this year and all the previous years. So you have that opportunity to go back to other papers from other years as well. Please make sure you visit our donors virtual booth. So at the bottom of the On24 page, you have all our donors. If you click on those tiles, you are going to see a virtual booth with all sorts of materials that our donors gave us. And also you have the option to talk to them on Zoom. They have Zoom links. Some of them will have Zoom links and some of them will have virtual booths. So please engage with them when you get a chance. All the videos that we have in the conference will be posted on YouTube after every day, shortly after every day, with a caveat: if you haven't given your permission to do so, we are not going to post your talk. Please join us on Slack. We have a hallway track where you can try to simulate the conversations that you normally have when we are all together. We also have a tech support channel, so please, if you have any issues, go there. And more importantly, this year we have a way of voting for the presentations, for the previews, for the short talks, and for the posters. So there are channels for all of them, and please vote for your favorite ones. We are also active on Twitter, and everything is launched from the On24 dashboard. You guys all received the link, and now if you join the conference, you are able to see the link there. I would like to ask you, if you see something that doesn't go well or something that doesn't work, please say something on Slack, on emails. We would really appreciate your support when something doesn't work, so that we can fix it as soon as possible. We are still going to obey to our code of conduct, so please follow the rules in the code of conduct. If there is an incident to report, please email us at the SP Incident Reporting. We don't have the support for the phone number, but please email us there. And with that, I would like to thank you all, and please enjoy the conference and be as interactive and take advantage of all the channels that we have for that, and have fun. Thank you all, and Hovav and Alina will take it over from here.
Thank you, Gabriela. On behalf of Alina and myself, the program chairs, I'd like to welcome you to IEEE Security and Privacy, traditionally called Oakland. Last year and this year, we were already not scheduled to be in Oakland, and now we are virtual, which I suppose means we're both not in Oakland at all and in Oakland in spirit. We're all very excited about having you join us for our 3 days of a program and discussion and our workshop day. It's traditional for program chairs to say a few words about the statistics and our experience of the program selection. In order to do that, we wanted to first say a few words about the IEEE Security and Privacy reviewing process, because that has some implications for the statistics, and we're going to change it a little bit for the upcoming Oakland 2021. So Oakland 2020 was run on a monthly submission deadline. This is an experiment that was also conducted for last year's Oakland, as well as part of the year for the Oakland before that. We had 12 deadlines on the first of each month from January 1st to December 1st. And we tried, and with a few exceptions, succeeded in getting decisions to authors within 2 months of each submission deadline, which incidentally meant that we were running 2 review processes simultaneously for 2 deadlines. We tried to get each paper reviewed by at least 3 program committee members. In many cases, we had quite a few more reviews than that. We could accept papers, possibly with shepherding, reject them, or because of the multiple deadlines, ask for revisions. In a revision, we gave the authors a specific set of criteria for improvements that we wanted them to address, and gave them 3 months to submit a revised version for review, and then the same program committee members who handled the original submission also handled the revision, which incidentally means that even after the conference ends, the program committee will still be reviewing submissions that are revisions of the very last submission deadline. that we had the December 1st deadline. So anticipating that we would have more submissions this year than in previous years, anticipation that incidentally proved correct, as you'll see in a second. We organized the largest Oakland program committee so far, 136 members. We aimed for diversity across a wide range of criteria, and we found that that was really helpful in making decisions. We asked program committee members to participate mostly in 3 reviewing cycles out of the 12 to try to avoid having them constantly reviewing. The way the load worked out, we managed to keep reviewing load at under about 20 papers per program committee member, which seemed manageable if quite demanding. And then papers were discussed online during an online PC meeting each month, and then we made the decisions. We aimed for a positive, constructive discussion, and later on we will have an award for the best program committee member in support of that goal. So we had 12 deadlines. The submission volume was not equal between the 12 deadlines, but grew from about a couple dozen in January to about 150 in our last December 1st deadline. That was a total of 841 submissions this year, which is a record. To put that in perspective to last year's submission volume, where again we had 12 monthly deadlines, we saw growth in essentially every submission month, and about a 25% growth in each month, and about a 25% growth overall. So we mentioned earlier that this is the largest Oakland by number of accepted papers. We accepted 104 papers, but in fact, that represents an acceptance rate that is in line with where it has been for the last decade, or if anything, even a little bit lower. The acceptance rate has been about flat. This year we accepted 12.3% of all submissions, despite the fact that submission volume grew by about 25%, as I mentioned.
Okay, thank you, Hovav. So welcome to the first virtual Oakland conference. And we have an exciting program in front of us for the next 3 days. And let me now discuss how we created the program for 2020. Okay, so we received, as Hovav mentioned, a record number of submissions, 841 submissions in all the 12 deadlines. From these, 41 papers were directly accepted and appeared in the 2020 program. We had another set of 86 papers that received a revised decision, and from these, 51 were resubmitted and accepted. They will also appear in the 2020 program. We have a set of 24 revised papers that are still under consideration for the 2021 program, and a small set of papers, 11, were resubmitted and rejected. So that brings the revision acceptance rate to more than 82%, which is relatively high. And the remaining set of papers, 714, were rejected and unfortunately will not appear in the 2020 program. We also inherited a small set of papers, 12 papers from the 2019 program. So these were papers that were revised and accepted by the 2019 program committee. That brings our total to a set of 104 papers, and our acceptance rate being 12.3%, which is in line with what we had in the last 10 years. Okay, now I would like to show a few quick statistics about the program of this year. So first, this graph shows the broad geographical representation of the authors of accepted papers. We have more than 500 authors representing 4 continents and 24 countries. And the top countries represented in the program are US, UK, China, and Germany. Now, in terms of paper topics, they are also very broad and they span a large number of topics, with the most popular topics for this year being attacks and defenses, privacy technologies and mechanisms, network and system security, application security, and hardware security. In terms of reviewing scores, these 2 graphs show the distributions of scores for accepted papers on the right and rejected papers on the left. And clearly accepted papers have a much higher score with an average of 4, maximum score being 6, and the average for rejected papers is 2.68. I would like to highlight 5 papers that got a maximum score of 6. Now I would like to discuss an important change to the Oakland submission model going forward. And this decision was taken after extensive discussion with authors, program committee members, and other members of the larger security community. We also coordinated with the chairs of the other 3 top security conferences, ACM-CCS, USNIC Security, and NDSS. And last summer, we created a proposal in a public GitHub repository, and we solicited feedback from the community via social media. And the decision the community agreed on was to transition Oakland to a quarterly submission model starting in 2021. Now, we already had the first deadline for 2021, beginning of March. We are in the middle of the reviewing process for that. And there will be 3 more deadlines this year in June, September, and December. The program committee chairs for 2021 are Thorsten Holtz and myself. Now, there are some advantages that we hope we will get from this new submission model. First, the submission cycles will not be overlapping, which means that the entire program committee will participate in every round of the reviewing process. That will give us access to enhance expertise in all different areas and also enable consistency in the review process. We will provide an update on how this transition went next year, but in the meantime, if you have any feedback about this process, please get in contact with either Thorsten or myself. We welcome your feedback on this. And finally, I would like to end with my acknowledgement. So there are many people that contributed their time, hard work, and dedication to make this event happen. And I would like to particularly recognize the authors and speakers who submitted their papers and prepared the online presentations. All the conference attendees that registered and will hopefully attend the event online. I would like to acknowledge the organizing committee and in particular the general chair, Gabriela Ciocâlie, and the vice chair, Alvaro Cardenas, for a huge effort to transition the event online under such a short notice. I am very grateful to the members of the IEEE Computer Society's Technical Committee on Security and Privacy, Ulf Erlingsson, Brian Parno, and Shane Peisert, for a lot of feedback and support during the last year. I would like to thank the program committee members and all the external reviewers for a tremendous amount of work to create this year's program. And there are many others behind the scenes that are responsible for making things run smoothly. I would like to thank and acknowledge all of them. With that, I'm hoping that you'll enjoy the first virtual Oakland conference. I look forward to meeting many of you virtually using all the available channels that we created, and to listen to all the stimulating talks and have discussions over the next few days. Thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda, we would like to provide a tribute to 2 treasured members of our community whom we lost in the last year, Bill Aiello and Doug Tiger. And now I will hand it over to Dave Evans from University of Virginia, who will play, he will play 2 memorial videos for them. And after that, Hovav and I will be back to announce the awards for this year.
It's hard to believe Bill is no more. I first met Bill in 1992 as a summer intern at Belcore when we worked together on some data compression problems. From that point on, we've been collaborators, fellow employees at Belcore, and more importantly, good friends.
I first met Bill Aiello when I went to work at Belcore after my PhD in 1994. It was my first job, and we worked in the same group for about 3 years. And then Bill and I went over to AT&T Labs around the same time, and he became my department head, so I worked for him. And I have to say, Bill was a great technical mentor to me. He was always the smartest guy in the room, and those rooms were full of some pretty impressive people.
For those of you who didn't have the good fortune to know Bill as perhaps some of us did, it's important to remember who he was. His defining characteristics was that he was very giving. He was always the first to volunteer for a job that was sometimes terrible and it wouldn't benefit him, but it might benefit the community or the people that worked for him like I did. But perhaps what I remember about him most was that he carried with him that sunny Southern California attitude with him throughout his entire life. And I will miss that positive energy that he always brought. He was my friend, and I'm going to miss him.
I first met Bill when I was in graduate school and first starting to attend CS theory conferences. He quickly became one of the people I always looked forward to seeing. While we had a number of technical conversations over the years, I most fondly remember our more personal interactions, talking about sycamore trees or things our respective children had done. One memory that stands out is at a conference in 1993 when I received news that my cat had been hit by a car and was at the vet with uncertain prognosis. I was trying to decide whether as a graduate student it would be frivolous and unprofessional for me to leave the conference and fly home. Bill took the decision seriously and helped me understand that there's nothing frivolous about caring for our loved ones, human or otherwise. He was that kind of person.
I really looked up to Bill, but besides being a technical mentor, he was also just the kindest person. And tell a little story about Bill that just kind of shows that is one time I was in my office at AT&T Labs and I started feeling a really sharp pain in my side. It was really, really bad. It knocked me down to the floor and I reached up to my desk and I dialed Bill's extension. And once he heard my voice, he came running and actually got me out to his car and rushed me to the hospital. And one thing I remember is I was in so much pain, I was in tears, and Bill managed to get me laughing, cheering me up, keeping me going until we got to the hospital. And I didn't know what had happened. And it turned out I had had a kidney stone. Bill stayed with me in the hospital until Anne arrived. And I just sort of remember that besides all the technical mentoring and all of the work that we did together, he was also fun to have around, very passionate about whether it was office politics or national politics or a technical issue. Bill was always just very, very passionate about everything, and he's just one of my favorite people that I've ever met, and so I wanted to say that about Bill.
I always enjoyed talking with Bill, working with Bill. We did a couple of papers together, 4 systems people, 3 theoreticians on a very practical crypto protocol that could nevertheless be proved correct. He was also just so friendly when we visited Vancouver for a conference after he'd moved there. We all went out to his house, had a good time, and oh, did he love talking about his children.
Here's Bill letting my son play with his super curly hair. Here's my son completely wrapped with it. He was fun like that. When I graduated and went to Belcore for several years, in our collaboration, we learned how to take theoretical ideas and look at practically important problems with cryptography and security and see if these ideas can be made to work reasonably well. They have a great training ground, and he was a physicist at heart, and it shows up in his work, and he loved laughing, and he loved music. More than his collaborations, I remember Bill as a really warm friend who was always willing to share his beliefs and opinions and willing to help out even the most junior of his collaborators.
I'll truly miss him.
Doug Tygar was a large presence with his huge laugh, stentorian voice, and vast knowledge of so many topics, including technology, mathematics, literature, music, film, dance, cuisine, wine, and politics. He knew everything about so many topics. He was always laughing at the absurdity of life and human foibles, while at the same time advocating for principles of justice and decency.
I want to tell you about a side of Doug Tygar that people do not always recognize. I do not believe I have ever heard anyone say, Doug Tygar, feminist icon. But he was one of those people whose fundamental decency caused him to be fair, to view everyone through a lens of our own essential humanity. And when you look at who he advised, Alma Whitten and Dawn Song and many others, there is credit due. He was woke before woke awakened.
Doug is an extremely intelligent person and cared deeply about his students in his own way. I still vividly remember how Doug helped me with my first presentation at the IEEE Security and Privacy Symposium. When I was doing a dry run and it wasn't going well, he literally went up to the podium and started delivering the presentation. He waved his hands animatedly while projecting his strong and energetic voice, showing me how to give a lively talk. Doug has been hugely influential in my life. It is sad to lose him. His legacy will be continued.
Doug brought a great deal of really joie de vivre into his cybersecurity research, whether he was working on new kinds of passwords with video images, or learning to attack learning algorithms. He's left a big mark on the cybersecurity community at Berkeley and certainly worldwide. We'll miss him very much. And of course, though, we'll have all these memories to fall back on.
I first met Doug when he came out to Berkeley to give his job talk, where he described his work on digital cache. And I remember very vividly his presentation where he was describing the properties that you might want from digital cache. And he asked for a volunteer from the audience to participate in a demonstration. And someone volunteered, and he asked them to borrow a $20 bill, and he took the $20 bill and then he tore it up and absolutely destroyed this poor volunteer's $20 bill, and then said, and that's why atomicity is important.
Doug was a consistent supporter of his female colleagues in computing. Although he would claim human nature is selfish, Doug himself was quite generous in this support. Doug often promoted the work of others, but always deflected praise about his own considerable accomplishments. Doug cared a great deal about a great many things, including the role of computing in society and in the institution of UC Berkeley and academia generally. We'll all miss him.
Doug Tygar was a special man. In the presence of Doug, there was never a dull moment. With a tremendous amount of knowledge on everything and everyone, conversations with Doug were always enriching. His sense of humor kept the discussion lively and entertaining. Thanks to Doug's encouragement and guidance through the admission process, I applied for a PhD and became his student at CMU. Doug not only provided advice on technical matters, but he also taught me many useful aspects on the entire spectrum of academic life, which I'm still applying today. Besides academics, I learned much about fine dining, the latest gadgets and technologies, expert witness cases, how to order books, and how not to use early navigation systems in cars. Doug, you touched and enriched many lives with your unique approach. We miss you.
When I was in grad school, I had my first child, Addie Camp. The entire time I was there, I was the only pregnant student I knew. Doug used his own restricted funds to provide for me an entire summer of maternity leave. Grad students still do not have this. He was immensely supportive. He included me in events and supported me. And then when I graduated, he laughingly but kindly told me that he had not thought I could do it. But he never showed a moment of doubt to me until not only after defense, but after commitment. And then his amusement was at his own surprise. And I'm one of many people whose lives have changed. I've had the opportunity to pay this forward. And I told my grad student who to thank for setting such a standard. Apparently, this confused him immensely. Why would someone thank him for setting an incredibly high bar? Because what would anyone else do? Why is that something to admire? Because doing the best was quintessentially Doug, and he just could not imagine it being any other way. So why would he be thanked? And I'm sorry I cannot say this to him. And I know that each of us has had help in reaching our current professional status. So please take a moment to thank the person who helped you in these hard times with a kind word. Did they help you? Did they encourage you? Did they give you guidance or support? Tell the people who are still here to hear it. And Doug, we miss you. You were an exceptional, excellent, and kind person.
Okay, thank you very much, Dave, for creating these videos, and we will always remember their contribution to the community. So Hovav and I are now delighted to present the awards for this year's best papers, as well as the best reviewer award. So first, let me discuss briefly about the award selection process, and then we will introduce the awards, and for each of the awarded paper, we will play the 1-minute paper previews. To select the awards, we created a committee, including the program committee co-chairs, Hovav and myself, as well as 5 other program committee members. Everyone nominated papers, and we had a set of 12 papers nominated, and then everyone voted for their top 3 nominations. Now, each of the best paper awards has an industry sponsor, which we will mention soon. And I know everyone is looking forward now to the winners. So without further ado, we will now announce the winners. We have 3 award papers, and we would like to ask the authors, if they are on the call, to please raise your hand if you are one of the winning award, and then we will show your video if you are on the call. Okay, so first, the best paper award. This is the paper that received the highest number of votes from the award selection committee, and this award is sponsored by Microsoft. And the winner is Trespass, Exploiting the Many Sides of Target Row Refresh. The authors are Pietro Frigo, Emanuele Vanacci, Hassan Hassan, Victor van der Ven, Onur Mutlu, Cristiano Giuffrida, Herbert Boss, and Kaveh Razavi. And this paper analyzes 42 existing targeted row refresh hardware solutions against row hammer attacks and show their limitations. And we will now play the 1-minute video review of the paper. Okay, so congratulations to the winners. We can have a round of applause. The panelists, if you can unmute yourself. Okay.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm very honored.
Yeah, now you would have come on the stage. If we were in San Francisco, we would hand you the award. But we have to do it virtually. But I'm glad you are on the call.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so the next award is for the best practical paper. This is sponsored by Intel, and this is the paper that
Now you can unmute yourself, Alina.
Okay, I was somehow muted, I'm sorry. Okay, so this is the paper that has the highest practical impact, sponsored by Intel, and the winner is an analysis of pre-installed Android software by Julien Gamba, Mohamed Rashed, Abbas Razakpanah, Juan Tapiador, Narceo Valina Rodriguez. And this paper presents a large case study of pre-installed Android software on Android devices from more than 200 vendors and sheds new lights into the Android supply chain. So we would like to ask the authors, if they are on the line, to raise your hands so you can become panelists. And now we will play the preview video.
Thanks to the openness of the Android operating system, any manufacturer can modify the source code before installing it on the device, and also pre-install extra application and system partition, often for product differentiation, and allow the partners to do the same. This has created a vast supply chain that is completely opaque to the user. Android was released more than 10 years ago, and yet no study has systematically analyzed the supply chain and the actors forming it and the practices. In our paper, we collected and studied more than 82,000 pre-installed applications from more than 200 vendors and shed light on this ecosystem. We have found hundreds of companies involved in the supply chain of Android devices, as well as potential cases of personal data collection and harmful behaviors. Overall, our results show a disturbing lack of transparency. We show that there is almost no control in the Android supply chain. Even worse, it's almost impossible in most cases to attribute with certainty an application to a given company. With this study, we hope to bring more attention to this issue and hopefully make the whole Android ecosystem safer for users.
Okay, congratulations. Are there any of the authors online? Okay.
Awesome. Are they going to interview you? Is Pietro also there?
No.
Thank you all.
Yeah, a round of applause for them as well for best practical paper. Congratulations to the winner. And now I will hand it over to
me.
Yeah.
My pants.
I will hand it now over to Hova to introduce the Best Student Paper Award.
Our third paper award is sponsored by Google. It is an award for the best student paper, which we interpreted being a paper with a student first author.
Hova, you need to mute your to unmute yourself. Sorry about it. I'm muting for the background noises.
All right. So student paper award is the best paper with a student first author. This award sponsored by Google. The award goes to Can Voters Detect Malicious Manipulation of Ballot Marking Devices? Written by Matthew Bernhard, Alison McDonald, Henry Meng, Jensen Hua, Nakul Bajaj, Kevin Chang, and J. Alex Halderman.
Okay, congratulations. We will play the video now. And please raise your hand if you are online. Okay, are the authors online?
If you are, please raise your hand.
And our last award now is the award for the best reviewer, best member of the program committee.
This was, in many ways, a hard award to give. We're really, Alina and I are really humbled by the work that the program committee put in and the amazing reviews that they wrote. But even so, there was a clear standout best reviewer that we are really excited to honor. When we went back to look through all the reviews, saw that this reviewer had written 32,000 words of reviews. And if you have used Hotcrap for reviewing before, you're aware that it's possible to mark a review as being very helpful. This reviewer got 8 very helpful marks across 19 reviews. And so we'd like to recognize Joe Calandrino as our 2020 Best Reviewer. Joe is at the FTC. Joe, are you?
Oh, he's on the call, yes. Congratulations, Joe.
Congrats, Joe. Thanks for the help.
Okay, congratulations to all the winners. And with that, we concluded the award session for this year conference, but we have more awards to give, the Test of Time Awards, looking back at the historical Auckland. So I will hand it over now to Dave Evans and Avi Rubin for the Test of Time Awards.
Thank you for joining us for this opening session and awards presentation. As we've explained many times to people wondering why we use Oakland as the name for our conferences held in San Francisco, San Jose, Berkeley, Paris, or now in Zoomland, Oakland is not a place, it's a community. This conference has a long and glorious history going back to the first symposium held in 1980. As part of our 40th anniversary celebrations last year, Stefan Savage initiated the Test of Time Awards to recognize some of the most significant results this community has produced. Last year, papers from the first 15 symposia were recognized, as well as papers from 2007 through 2009. I had the immense privilege of chairing the committee to select the Test of Time Awards from the 1995 through 2006 symposia, which will be presented today. After that, Avi Rubin will present awards for the 2008 through 2010 symposia. Selecting award winners from all the remarkable papers published across 12 Oakland conferences is truly a daunting task. It would not have been possible without the tremendous efforts of an amazing group of committee members who you see here. Our committee spans the entire history of the symposium with expertise across the breadth of research in security and privacy and a deep understanding of both the academic research community and industrial practice. It was a true pleasure and an extraordinary honor to work with this group. Our charge was to identify papers that had stood the test of time. We considered three main criteria. First, the paper should describe work that has had a substantial impact on the real world. There are lots of ways such impact might be realized, but the most obvious ones are having a direct influence on common practice across the computing industry or being deployed in widely used and important systems. The second main criteria is having a major impact on the research community. We did look at bibliometrics as one factor, but didn't emphasize citation counts as a way to measure this. Instead, we looked for papers that initiated major new research directions and led to work or even entire research fields that otherwise would not have emerged. Finally, we wanted to find papers that anyone in our field should read and learn about today. We started with the 252 papers published in the 12 symposia. All of these are good papers. As we all know, Oakland never accepts a bad paper. One of our goals was to find papers with outstanding impacts, but that might not already be well known among our community. So I assigned to each member of the committee a few years of the time period to look at, with a task to scour all the papers from those symposia looking for candidates that satisfy the test of time criteria. We identified 31 candidate papers for a short list to evaluate more thoroughly. Over a series of Zoom meetings last winter, we discussed all of these papers in length and selected 9 papers to win Test of Time awards. It is my distinct honor to present these awards, which will be announced in chronological order. We invited each of the award winners to prepare a short video to share the story of their paper, and I think you'll find many valuable lessons and insights to glean from their experiences. The first award is for A Sense of Self for Unix Processes from the 1996 Symposium.
What a lovely honor to receive this award. Anil, Steve, Tom, and I would like to thank all the organizers through the years who have worked so hard to sustain the symposium, which today remains as one of the most respected venues in security. Of course, we are particularly grateful to this year's awards committee, who dredged up our paper for the award. A heartfelt thank you from all of us. The occasion has brought the four of us back together to reminisce a bit. Our mindset was quite different because we were coming in from different disciplines.
We're more like scientists and engineers. A lot of the security papers I'd read up to that point were more like, they sort of didn't, they weren't as empirical as that. They didn't, maybe there were a lot of theoretical papers, but they just didn't go to the trouble of trying to run attacks. I mean, obviously for good reason, it was really hard to do that. Yeah, it was all such a big unknown as to whether this approach would give us any joy. It wasn't any theory we could turn to or anything like that, really. It was just hunches, right?
That stuff that, we wanted to do and get involved, I don't think it's going to work. As I said, they just, there's just not enough there to discover the anomalies and separate the traffic. I'm like, you just can't do it.
Bill and S-Trace did not get along well.
No.
The other thing that I think was unusual about what we did is using such a simple modeling method.
It's a cry of where's the reproducibility is still a cry. It is still a bane of the existence of so many of the security papers out there.
We still lack on our computers, even something that's circumventable, but just something that is a general defense against a wide classes of attacks. We tackled a hard problem, and that problem still hasn't been solved. And we want to encourage everyone to look back and say, there are still room for crazy ideas to solve the big problems.
I want first to thank the community and the committee for this Test of Time award of a paper that we worked on 25 years ago, and it was part of Adam's master's thesis. Adam and I started to think at that time about the implication of the fact that the internet gives attacker global reach and what can they do. And the twist was that they can weaponize cryptography and use it as an attack weapon rather as the traditional defense that it always used to be for confidentiality and authentication and things like this, protective measures. So we came up with this work. We envisioned that the internet will be there, global reach, that attackers will persist on the internet, and that they will try to extort money and make illegitimate business over the internet. That electronic payment system will come, and this is how this paper came to be, cryptovirology. And we continue to think about offensive cryptography and continue to pursue this new role that we envision that cryptography can play as an abuse and attack tool. So thank you very much.
Hi. On behalf of my co-authors, Joan Feigenbaum and Jack Lacey, I wanted to say that we're honored, humbled, and to be honest, a little bit baffled that you've chosen to honor us with the Test of Time Award for our paper. When we wrote this paper, we, I think, misunderstood what its impact, to the extent it's had impact, would be. We thought that we were proposing a compelling alternative to the identity-based X509 style certificate model that was starting to emerge on the internet and be proposed for general use. And I think it's probably fair to say that we completely and utterly failed to succeed at that goal. But we also, I think, accomplished something a little different that may ultimately be why you chose to recognize the paper. And that is that we identified an explicit trust management layer in secure systems where a dangerous request coming over the network should be scrutinized at a specific layer of abstraction. And I think we've seen that impact over time percolate out into many of the services that we see. And we're just delighted that you've chosen to recognize that we and the work that preceded us in this area had some influence over that. And again, we're humbled and delighted and honored to receive this terrific award. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Gene Spafford. When we received notice of this award, we were all a bit taken aback. 23 years? Has it really been that long? Let me give you some context for how the paper came about. In 1992, we founded the Coase Laboratory at Purdue University. As one of the only academic research areas in cybersecurity in the world, we attracted many talented students, including the co-authors on this paper. In 1996, there were a number of internet denial of service attacks. I challenged the students to look at the attacks and try to come up with a solution. They quickly replicated the attack and started in. After a week or two of effort, we had a group discussion that included the students presenting a detailed discussion of how the attack worked, including using the TCP diagram as an illustration. The solutions they had come up with so far were disappointing in scale and efficacy. I remember suggesting that if they could model the attack as a state machine, then perhaps a solution could be developed the same way. Within a week, the students had coded a working prototype to test our model attack and defense. Thereafter, with some extended tinkering and tuning, there was a rush to produce a paper to submit to the conference, a process I'm sure many of you have experienced. Thereafter, Christoph received his PhD in 1997 and is now a senior security architect at Apple Computer. Ivan received his PhD in 1998, and he currently runs a company, Art Exacta, that he founded in Bolivia. Marcus finished his master's in 1997 and went on to finish his PhD and join the faculty at Cambridge. Robin finished his master's in 2017 and is now the head of information assurance and data protection at Relux. Diego finished his PhD in 2001 and is now an enterprise security architect at Swisscom in Switzerland. In 1998, I transitioned Coase into the Sirius Center at Purdue, which I led for 18 years. Currently, I'm continuing as a professor at Purdue and generally as a curmudgeon at large. We would all like to thank you for the recognition of this paper. It remains a bright spot in all our careers, as does this event today.
I'm David Goldschlag. When Paul Syverson, Michael Reed, and I began onion routing in 1995, we never imagined that it would be important in 2020. I'll give some history before Paul talks about the paper. People ask why the US government let us build onion routing. The company line is that we were not trying to provide anonymous communication, but to separate identification from routing. And to protect government open source intelligence collection, you needed other users. But the truth is, we knew that privacy was important and that anonymity was controversial, and we were happy to be mischievous. We never imagined that onion routing would be well known or be a question on Jeopardy or in Business Week. When my son Kobe began high school, the get-to-know-him question was, whose dad invented the dark web? But we didn't invent the dark web. I'd like to thank the IEEE and NRL, Carl Landwehr, Kathy Meadows, and John McLean, and most of all, both Michael and my carpooling buddy, Paul.
I'm Paul Syverson. We started on onion routing at NRL 25 years ago. Michael and David moved on after the 90s, but I'm still at NRL and I'm still working on onion routing. The largest legacy of this work, and this particular paper, is undoubtedly the system that Roger Dingeldine dubbed Tor, or the onion routing, to distinguish it from versions devised elsewhere following our invention. Paper's contributions include the first description and performance analysis of an onion routing implementation, one that was publicly available and in use since '96, and the first mention of a configuration where clients build circuits locally but are not themselves on onion routers, so we're no longer limited to a peer-to-peer model, and lots more. Currently, Tor's millions of daily users rely on a nonprofit employing dozens of employees, and a huge community of volunteer developers, operators, and outreachers teaching people how to use Tor and stay safe online. And there are dozens of researchers at NRL and elsewhere who've written thousands of papers on onion routing. Thank you for this recognition of our work.
We're extremely grateful and honored for receiving this award.
Our sincere gratitude to the selection committee and the community.
Indeed. And it is a particularly special honor to receive the Test of Time Award for this work, which is centered around harnessing the passage of time to create the asymmetry needed for publicly verifiable message authentication codes.
The project essentially started in 1997, when I started my PhD at CMU. My advisor, Doug Tygar, gave me the following problem to work on. Consider the distribution of advertisements on the internet. Such advertisements could be broadcast to receivers. Network providers could switch the advertisement and profit themselves. So how can receivers efficiently authenticate broadcast information to make sure it originates from the correct sender?
It is incredible the foresight Doug had to pose this problem, as internet advertising was still in its infancy at the time.
Not just advertising. The internet itself was in its infancy in 1997. Certainly, PKI and the ability to digitally sign and verify efficiently was much more primitive than it is today.
Indeed, I was initially quite perplexed by the problem and didn't make much progress on it, as all the approaches seemed insufficiently efficient. I kept thinking about the problem, and 2 years later, during an internship at IBM Research, the basic idea appeared while in the evening reading a relatively unrelated paper on multicast key distribution.
We then worked out the basic Tesla system, adding the one-way keychain to achieve robustness to packet loss.
I remember the day that Adrian walked into my office in summer 1999, all excited, and started drawing boxes on the board. I was working myself on a broadcast authentication scheme at the time, and the solution looked to me like a cheat at first. It looked too simple, and the reliance on the synchronization for authentication seemed like a non-starter. But then I got convinced that the synchronization requirements is actually reasonable, and the solution might actually work.
After arriving at Berkeley, Doug suggested the use of amortized digital signatures, which then led to the chain signature verification scheme as the second part of the paper.
Doug didn't like the initial name for the system, which we called Magma. Incidentally, Benny E was visiting and suggested the name Tesla.
As a big fan of Nikola Tesla, I immediately liked the name.
I was unsure at first. What does an authentication scheme have to do with a futuristic music instrument? Little did we know that this instrument is going to be the least of our problems with name collisions with futuristic things.
Initially, people didn't like the need for time synchronization of Tesla, but without that, alternative systems had a much higher overhead.
Over the past 20 years, the Tesla authentication system was used in a variety of real-world applications. Today, Tesla is being considered for the authentication of satellite navigation messages.
In fact, already in the early 2000s, it was considered for standardization as a multicast authentication scheme at the IETF. It became an RFC in 2005, and we should mention that Bob Briscoe is a co-author of that RFC.
First, let me talk a little bit about the paper on searching unencrypted data. The problem is how to design an encryption scheme that, while protecting the confidentiality of the data, allows the server to perform search on the encrypted data. The problem was initially inspired by a presentation by Kubi, a faculty in EECS at Berkeley, on Ocean Store, a global federated network of storage nodes. One of the research challenges was how to simultaneously achieve data confidentiality and utility. Since data would be stored on untrusted storage nodes, it had to be encrypted. But how can we achieve utility and enable searching the data if it was encrypted? I found the question intriguing and kept thinking about it after the presentation. The same day, I came up with an initial approach, and with David Wagner and Adrian Perrig, we worked together to develop a much more efficient solution. The final algorithm in the paper was simple and elegant. There was no crypto class offered at Berkeley at the time. I remember learning crypto by reading online lecture notes and papers. In particular, reading through Michael Blair's notes was very helpful even when I was writing the paper. The paper was published 21 years ago, and it was my first paper and presentation at the IEEE Security and Privacy Symposium. The problem setting predates the rise of cloud computing by more than a decade. We were one of the earliest to work in this domain. Searching over encrypted data, and more generally, computing over encrypted data and secure cloud computing has since grown into active research areas with a volume of work and real-world applications and deployment. Doing work early in a new domain does present unique opportunities for groundbreaking exploration.
We're extremely grateful and honored to receive this award. We'd like to extend our sincere gratitude to the selection committee and the community.
Our paper's setting is in sensor networks, an early version of distributed IoT nodes. As sensor network nodes have severe resource constraints, they cannot efficiently perform asymmetric cryptographic operations.
The project started with the breakthrough idea by Echenor and Gligor that was presented in their seminal CCS 2002 paper, a key management scheme for distributed sensor networks. Their idea was to select a pool of symmetric cryptographic keys to provide a subset of keys to individual sensor nodes.
Two neighboring nodes would then determine which keys of the key pool they had in common, and if they had at least one common key, they would use that to protect their communication.
This elegant approach was intensely intriguing. As soon as Hao Wen started his PhD at CMU, we immediately started working on these systems.
We extended the model of key distribution and established an approach for analyzing the security of such schemes.
By identifying 3 different ways of extending the resilience of the original key pooling scheme, we showed that key pooling was not limited to just a single algorithm, but was in fact an exciting problem space emitting a large number of approaches with different properties and trade-offs.
We could not foresee the tremendous community interest this research would incite, as many researchers started to embark and propose a series of ever-improved systems.
This wave of research has also helped to popularize the threat model of multiple node compromise in sensor networks and IoT. This threat model continues to be a fruitful source of research challenges today. We are grateful to have been part of this journey.
My name is Brian Parno, and on behalf of my co-authors, Adrian Perrig and Virgil Gligor, I would like to thank the Test of Time Committee for this award. We are honored and grateful to receive it. We were proud of our work at the time, but we never expected it to have so much impact. This work started when Virgil, then a professor at the University of Maryland, visited CMU to give a talk. In the talk, he mentioned the challenges of detecting node replication attacks, and he observed that the node replication attacker is both stronger and weaker than the traditional Dole-Biao adversary. Afterwards, Adrian and Virgil discussed the general notion of trying to detect replication via emergent algorithms, which produce a network-level property via the independent actions of many nodes. Shortly thereafter, I started as a graduate student at CMU, and Adrian pitched me on the project. While we exchanged many emails while writing the paper, it turns out that I would only meet Virgil in person the following spring at the 2011 Oakland conference where this paper appeared. Over the next few months, I fleshed out a protocol in which nodes sign their own location information and sent it randomly to selected witness nodes in the network. The security analysis used the birthday paradox to guarantee a high probability of detection. Unfortunately, this protocol was more expensive than we wanted, so I came up with a second protocol, inspired by a recent paper on rumor routing. The security analysis of our new protocol relied on Sylvester's 4-point problem and led me to make one of my few in-person visits to CMU's math library. 3 days before the deadline, we realized that our Python-based simulator wouldn't finish all of the tests in time, so over the course of several sleepless nights, I rewrote it in C++ to eke out some additional speed. As you may know, this adversary model and problem formulation captured the community's interest and led to some remarkable follow-on work. For myself, I am grateful that Adrian and Virgil gave me such a strong start to my graduate career, and they have been such generous mentors ever since. From all of us, I would like to thank you again for this honor.
Congratulations to all the authors of the award-winning papers. These works are astounding achievements and something everyone in our community should be proud of. Many of the award winners are here today, so I hope you'll join me in congratulating them in the conference Slack, as well as in person, at least virtually, in our Zoom room after the ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's a really amazing honor.
Thank you.
Amazing honor.
Thank you.
Hi, Adrian.
Who's the cutie?
Wow. Hi, Adrian. Wow.
So, ich esse jetzt meine Pizza und unmute mich dafür mal wieder, ne?
Okay. Getting a little echo here. Hi, I'm Avi Rubin, and I was asked to chair the committee to award the test of time for papers from 2008 through 2010. And David already covered what the criteria are for this award, but this, unlike a Best Paper Award, a Test of Time Award is to recognize papers that not only were really great at the time that they came out, but have demonstrated over the years to have been insightful and to have provided research results that are still recognized as being important many years later. So the committee consisted of Somesh Jha, Kathy Meadows, Paul Van Oorschot, myself, and David Wagner. And the process that we took was to read the papers from those years, and then each of us had a chance to nominate some of the papers. And we had many discussions over the phone and email. And then what we did is once we had our nominated papers, we broke them up into subcommittees to have further reading and discussion of them, and finally came up with our short list. Then we had some more meetings and discussions, and finally we chose 2 papers. And one of the things that David Evans mentioned when he was talking about the overall Test of Time Awards is that while we did consider citation counts, it wasn't a primary factor, but it was interesting to note that the 2 papers that were chosen, both of them had not only very high citation counts, but they had citation counts that increased, that as the years went on, the number of citations, the number of new citations increased. And so that was another demonstration of the kind of test of time power of these papers. So the first paper that received this award is from 2010 Oakland Conference. I will read the authors' names to recognize them. It's a long list. Karl Kosher, Alexei Sheskis, I'm sorry if I don't get these all right, Franziska Rasner, Shwitak Patel, Yoshi Kono, Steve Checkaway, Damon McCoy, Brian Cantor, Danny Anderson, Hovav Shacham, and Stefan Savage. And the paper was Experimental Security Analysis of a Modern Automobile. And I can tell you, I went to school at the University of Michigan, and many of my colleagues were, after they graduated, they got jobs in the area with the auto industry. And so I got phone calls when this paper came out saying to me, you know, this paper is a big deal. This paper is going to change the way that we have to build cars. And when this paper came out, it really kind of took the auto industry by storm. And if we look at cars today, 10 years later, we see that they have even more electronics, even more security requirements. And so this paper was kind of the first one that showed us as a community all of the issues that we can find in automobiles. So now I'm going to play an acceptance speech by the authors.
Given the unusual circumstances that we're in, we put together this video with some of our thoughts about this work.
While it is the three of us here speaking on behalf of the team, this really, truly was a huge team effort, and everyone had a critical role in this project.
Yeah, one of the most amazing teams I have ever had the honor to work with. It was an amazing experience.
But I especially want to call out the technical efforts and the leadership on the University of Washington side by Carl Kosher, Alexei Cheskus, and Francisco Rosner, and on the UCSD side by Steve Checkaway, Damon McCoy, and Danny Anderson. They really did a significant amount of heavy lifting to make this project successful.
And sadly, not all of our team is still with us. Brian Cantor sadly passed away this 2019, but was instrumental in much of the work helping us reverse engineer a number of the components that were critical for writing this paper. We also did the project entirely on spec, right? So we bought a couple of cars and set this amazing group of students loose and said, we know there's stuff there, go find it.
This project was definitely the highlight of my grad school career. As well as being impactful, we had a lot of fun.
No. As a result of this paper, it really transformed the way the entire automotive industry looks at computer security. And today, every major manufacturer looks at computer security in a fundamentally more serious and more rigorous way. A thank you to the key people inside General Motors who ended up being great champions for our work inside the company and made the relationship in the end one that was not adversarial but collaboratory and allowed us to have significant impact. And a thank you to the National Science Foundation for funding the work, even though apparently government rules would not allow them to buy any cars.
Okay, I would also like to ask if you're one of the authors of that paper and you're in the Zoom as a participant, that you raise your hand in Zoom and you can be upgraded to a panelist so that we can show your video and spotlight it as well. And the same goes for the authors of the second paper that we chose. This paper is Outside of the Closed World on Using Machine Learning for Network Intrusion Detection by Robin Summer and Vern Paxson. This paper also is an excellent choice for a Test of Time Award because while everyone 10 years ago already realized that machine learning was starting to permeate many, many different aspects of computation, a lot of people thought you could just apply it to anything and it would immediately improve your security. And this paper went to show that actually network intrusion detection has some properties where machine learning isn't necessarily the best possible choice, and they highlighted why. And I think that the paper is so well written that it is often used in security classes nowadays to show students, you know, an understanding of when machine learning might apply and when it might not apply. And so now here is the acceptance video from the authors of this paper.
Hi, I'm Robin. Hope everybody is doing well. Vern and I are both very, very honored to receive this award, and we really appreciate the recognition by security and privacy for this paper. Thank you very much. Maybe interesting to know that when we published this paper originally, we were honestly a bit worried about the reception it would receive. it could certainly come across as a bit of a harsh take on some of the work going on in the community. At the same time, we did feel like it was necessary to be pretty direct with some of our observations, so we didn't really mince words either. So from that perspective, it is actually quite satisfying to see how well the community did in fact receive the paper pretty much from the get-go. The paper has become part of the security curriculum in many classrooms, but also, and with our academic hats on, it may be more interesting, it's also pretty popular actually with the practitioners in the field in charge of protecting their networks with the technology available. I believe this paper has really managed to bridge these two worlds in the sense that on the one hand, you have the research side building really cool novel technology that may fundamentally shift the advantage to the defender. But then on the other side, as obvious as it might be in practice, this technology also really needs to work and produce something useful. And that's really where I think the rubber hits the road with AI-based approaches in security in particular. We noticed this gap 10 years ago, and honestly, we still regularly see it today, not in academia, but I would say now maybe even more so in industry, where startups in this space are so pretty popular. Anyways, thanks again for this award. We are very honored and we really appreciate it, and enjoy the conference and see you all soon.
Okay, well, let's thank these awardees and congratulate them. And I'll hand it back to the chairs.
Okay, I think we just finished the first session and it wasn't bad at all. Thank you all, and see you in all the different paper sessions. And again, this will be fun, and be gentle with us. There will be things that will not go smooth. Thank you all. See you in the sessions.